And we are live.
All right, good evening. Welcome to tonight's Board of Health meeting for Thursday, July 24th. We are being recorded. We'll call this meeting to order. We'll start with roll call.
John Fickner here.
Joyce Gilmore here.
Jack Colon here.
Colleen Stefani.
Alan Greenberg here. Very good. Now we'll move on to the third agenda item, good and welfare for the public. Anybody in the audience at home or with us today have anything on this topic?
There's nobody on the audience online.
All right, moving on to new business. Jack, you want me to take this in order? I see we have some guests that we need to shuffle.
Liz Lamont is here from, I'm assuming, for the ADUs on behalf of Concom. And you gentlemen are here for?
The 184 Providence, land that dropped off, garage, and septic.
That's not a Board of Health agenda topic.
It's not,
No.
well, that was waiting for review or what?
Are you looking for John Erickson?
Oh, John, we're waiting on John, but he is, okay, what he was gonna do is, they're doing some of the septic system. So it was apparently to be on the agenda now.
All right, so that's gonna have to be put on the next agenda. I do not have that for this agenda topic. I do apologize, but I do not have that for agenda topic for this agenda meeting tonight.
Okay, he said, what, submitted it when I did?
But, yeah, I dropped it off the day after last week.
Yes, you gave it to me and I thought it was for John Erickson
Okay,
and I put it on his desk.
well, I had dropped off something for him as well.
Okay.
I dropped off for you first, but, yeah,
All right, is this for the ADU?
yeah,
Well, for the garage?
yeah.
All right, that's with our engineer. He hasn't seen that yet. When he gets back to me, that's when I contact you to put you on the agenda for a meeting.
Okay, so he did have to go to him to get,
Yes, we have an engineer that reviews it, so when he gets back with me about talking about it, that's when I contact you for a meeting.
okay,
All right, but it's not on tonight's meeting.
yeah, okay, well, I wasn't sure how that
All right,
works. So
okay.
it's with him at this point.
It's with our engineer, correct, for review.
Okay,
All right,
sounds good.
When you submit something like that, roughly how long does it take to get through the engineer?
depends on what he has a schedule on, but he has up to 45 days to review and make a decision.
Okay,
That usually takes within a couple of weeks.
yeah. All right,
And then he'll be back to you, and he'll be.
He'll get back to me, and that's when I contact you to put you on the agenda for the board to fully see his approval.
Okay,
All right?
anything else you?
no,
All right.
All right.
Hey,
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
feel free to stick around.
Yeah, well, there's other things calling it hard.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, so we are gonna take everything in order.
In order, correct.
All right, so, looks like chapter 10, trailers and mobile homes bylaw, ADUs.
The General Bylaw Committee, I'm Joanne Lamont, I'm a member of the General Bylaw Committee. The General Bylaw Committee's been given the task to review all the town bylaws. In particular, right now, we're looking at trailers and mobile homes. And it came about, we had some questions on it, like, should ADUs be part of this? I know they had some questions like, should they be modified or superseded because of the new ADU town bylaw? And, I think that was one of the questions. One of them was, is there a difference between the ADU requirement for a well or the town water and septic? And then the other one is the Board of Selectmen temporarily granting permits for trailers, such in the case that somebody's house was to be burnt down, does the Board of Selectmen grant it? How does that interplay with the current bylaw that's in place? Because there's really nothing in the current bylaw that states if your home burns down, it just basically looks like it's for new construction only, if you're gonna build a new construction or dwelling. And are there any other modifications you'd like to make to this bylaw that the town currently has? So that's why we're bringing it to you. So, I don't know, if you want to take time to discuss it at a meeting, take a look at it and see if you want to make modifications. It's your call.
I have a couple of things I can
I'll
say
take
right
it.
now. So with regards to, the first question about trailers on mobile homes, I mean, you would have to petition the select board if it doesn't already have a consideration in there for if a home burnt, for them to add it to the bylaw. You should keep trailers and mobile homes separate from ADUs, they're two separate things.
Okay,
A trailer or a mobile home, depending upon the bylaw, may or may not be allowed as a permanent home. They usually are not, they're usually temporaries, where an ADU would be a permanent home, so they should be separated. And regardless of whether it's a trailer or a mobile home or an ADU, they would have to comply with, they would have, like any other, residential structure, you have to have potable water and you have to have a septic system. So if it was a temporary trailer, say, that because the house burnt down, they would have to tie into the on-site septic system. They would have to pull a permit with the Board of Health, which we already have in place, already covered under this Title V. And then they would have to tie into the existing septic system, would be inspected by our Title V inspector.
okay. I noticed like on all temporary permits are for 6 months. So your house burns down, we all know it's nowhere near gonna get done in 6 months.
Well, they can renew it.
They can renew it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it is renewable.
If-
And it's on a by circumstance basis. It's not like as far as.
If I may,
Sure.
as far as the renewal goes, you have to renew it before the term expires. Because if not, you go all the way back to start. Okay, so that's a really important point, is not to let the existing permit lapse.
So should that be put into the bylaw?
Wouldn't hurt.
As a question, is that a requirement of what the select board is doing, or are you speaking?
I'm speaking Board of Health.
The reason I ask is, this chapter gives oversight to the select board to issue the permit, so I just didn't know where you were speaking from.
Right, but I know in the past when we've talked about someone living in a trailer on a temporary basis, the Board of Health had to go out and inspect the storage,
Oh, yeah,
and the Board of Health had to go out and inspect the water.
correct.
And we had to, if I remember correctly, almost sign off on the permit before the select board granted the permit.
Right,
Well, that's,
because you have to have potable water
And it's for a specified amount of time. But renewal is allowed, provided you apply for the renewal before it lasts.
again, you're speaking from the board of health perspective, I just didn't know if you were speaking the overall select board.
The select board would require
Well,
That's all I'm
as
saying.
well,
Yeah.
because it's right here, it's written
Number
right here.
one.
Yeah, so, but the select board, to your point, the select board can't consider, number one, the permit first of all, or an extension without the Board of Health signing off.
Well, those conditions have to be met within that section, which board of health is one of them, but there's a couple
Mm-hmm.
of conditions, so the select board would sign off as long as those conditions are met.
correct.
I just wondered when you were
Well,
putting your time here.
Ms. Lamont, right?
Yeah,
Where you brought up 6 months, I just wanted to make that point so that nobody gets caught not knowing. That's kind of an important thing to do. And a lot of things that the Board of Health has, there are conditions that allow people to extend a period of time for their permits. And the general rule is, if you're going to apply for an extension, you have to apply for the extension before the original expires. So that's the only reason I'm making that statement.
no, and it probably should be in here because I would think 6 months and I would come in the day it's going to expire and apply. I would not think otherwise. That way there, if it's in here, I think in writing saying before the term expires, it will cover the person being, okay, yeah, it's in writing, it's in here, and we have it written down and shows that we are providing good faith to them, that we have noted, we want you to come in before it expires.
Sense?
Okay?
And then as far as ADUs go, an ADU is, would be a residence, a permanent residence. So they would have to comply with the requirements for potable water and septic system like any other traditional, say, residence.
Okay.
I did find it interesting when I looked at that section number 1 under section 3, that it didn't phrase a condition such as fire or damage to the home. It does reference like a new construction, which I know in the past, we had these permits approved for situations home damage by fire. I just found it interesting.
Well, I was under the understanding that in general, trailers to live in as a residence were outlawed in the town of Mendon, not allowed.
They are. It's,
Okay.
it's the first thing.
Yeah, but I just wanted to make sure we're having this discussion that
Yeah,
what
it
I'm
says,
reading and
yeah,
what I understand
yeah,
Yes.
it
is the
says,
rule.
it is, yes.
Right, so I think there's one or two, I can think of two existing trailers that came before this ruling that exist in the town of Mendon, one on Blackstone Street and one on North Bridge Road.
Oh, yeah, okay, I know
All
the
right.
one that you're talking about,
Yeah,
yeah.
so those are the only two that I'm aware of at this time that still exist. There was one on Taft Ave, that one was removed and a home was constructed. So I just wanted to make sure that what I'm reading and what I'm understanding are the same.
And
I don't
out of
know.
curiosity, why are those two, are they saying they're existing as lived in, currently lived in situations?
Yeah, so they're probably pre-existing, non-conforming, when the bylaw was adopted. You can't, just because you adopt a bylaw to someone that's already living in a trailer, you can't tell them they can't live in a trailer.
I was just wondering, because it looked like it was referencing the bylaw goes back to 58, so it's pre that time?
Yeah. If that trailer was there prior to this was, right? But if you read section 3, it says, no person shall occupy a trailer or mobile home for living or business purposes without a permit from the select board.
That's correct.
So they're not saying you can't. They're saying you can't without a permit.
Right, so what they're doing is, the general is saying up front, from the first thing, you can have it. Then they're kind of saying condition. And then they go into the condition situation.
Where does it say they can't have it in this bylaw?
Well, it talks about no trailer, well, it says actually no trailer, coach park.
That's
It's like
pack.
coach
Has to be a
pack.
park,
Yeah,
that's more than one.
No, that's a pack, like a trailer pack.
Do they consider more than one trailer park?
There's no, I don't know, because they
At
don't
one point in
define
time,
it.
they must have, because they said more than one trailer shall be termed a trailer coach pack, and you can only
Oh, there you
have,
go.
Yeah,
So
section
that's-
2.
at
Yeah.
one point in time, they must have
Yeah.
thought that, so.
But it doesn't say, per se, that you can't occupy it. It does say that, but it says without a permit from the select board.
Correct, yes, they should go through the
So,
process.
right, so if the
So they're
select
not-
board's not gonna issue a permit to do it, then you're not gonna be able to do
Yeah.
it. So essentially, it is undoable,
Conditional.
or not doable.
Yeah, you might, if they're reviewing the bylaw committee, you might want to change that language. And then maybe add, if you check the other under zoning probably, to see if there is any provision in there regarding if a house burns down, that they by right maybe through zoning, I don't know, I'm not familiar with zoning in Mendon, may by right, because the house burnt down, be able to have a trailer without a permit.
Well,
even. So you
also-
might want to check that.
Another condition, and we've discussed this in the past, is someone who does a major renovation of a property. So it's not because of fire, but it's because they're doing a renovation to the extent where they need to move.
Mhm.
So they either need to live in a temporary structure on the property, or they need to leave the property. I know that happened recently in Blackstone. I remember seeing a mobile home set up, and they were doing a major renovation. Now, I don't know, the house didn't burn to my knowledge. Okay. So there are other conditions that someone may need to have a temporary structure that meets code to live in so that their home can be updated or repaired.
But they would still have to come to you to get a temporary permit for water and septic.
Right, essentially, they're going to the board, they're going to the select board for the permit, and the select board is circulating
Correct,
the permit. So
correct.
when it comes to the Board of Health office,
We do our due diligence on what is required for us to
They
approve.
can go out and look and make sure the septic's hooked up.
Correct.
And, you know, the water's hooked up, and
Correct.
there's all that type of
It's
facility.
just like the electrical inspector would go out and inspect if it's a temporary service to make sure that the mobile home or trailer is properly tied into that temporary service.
I think this has been helpful.
Good.
well, thank you for reaching out.
We'll come, we may be back again with more questions.
Fine.
We're going through a bunch of other, let's put it this way, we're going through all of them, and we're looking at them diligently to make sure and updating what we can. It's just a matter of we're whittling away.
Yeah, sure. If there are any other questions, we're here.
And I know within the Board of Health house, we're also discussing ADUs. And unfortunately, where the state hasn't fully got their policies together, it's rather difficult to nail anything down concrete.
Okay.
So different discussions we're having, like tonight, we're gonna be discussing well regulations. So anything that has to do with a well regulation that would apply to an ADU, we're almost adopting the policy of having like a space holder, because we're gonna have to go back to it when the state makes up their mind what their policies are.
Yeah.
So that's, the ADU section is probably gonna be a tough thing to nail down with concrete language.
Okay, all right, great. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. All have a nice night.
If you just want to let the board know that Tom Ryder is online with us tonight.
Okay.
Hello, Tom Ryder.
Oh, good evening.
All right, just want to make sure you can hear us, we can hear you.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you for a while. I had to I didn't realize I had my speaker set on the wrong one again, so. Like, maybe it's just this little button I have to press, so.
Oh, there you go, all right, very good.
All right, just checking in, Joyce, you okay out there?
Yep, I am.
All right, very good.
I heard Tom Ryder.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to appointment of Danielle Lamar.
Yes, Danielle Lamar is part of the Blackstone Valley Partnership for Public Health as an inspector. She is the replacement of Dan, who was our in-homes, not the in-home inspector, but our health agent from Blackstone Valley. So we need to appoint her as part of our inspector for the town.
Okay. So this is just.
So needs a vote.
Okay.
To appoint her.
So I'll take a motion first.
Any discussion?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Would there be any discussion first before we take a motion? Yes.
You take a motion for discussion.
Do you have any insight, any feedback?
Oh, she's brand new, worked with her on Tuesday. She is currently going through the tier 1 training. She is not taking the test to be inspector yet, to go out into, the restaurants and things like that. She shadowed with Emily, who also worked for the partnership at one time, and she now works with the CMRCP.
Yeah.
She's a very bright girl. It was a pleasure working with her. I absolutely believe that she'd be an asset to the team.
It's a good recommendation.
There you go. Jack, anything?
Nope.
Joyce, any questions on this appointment?
No, I think it's a good one.
All right, so we'll go to a motion.
I'll make a motion that we appoint, is it Danielle?
Danielle.
Danielle Lamar as BBPPH Health Inspector for the town of Mendon.
Second,
Second. Thank you, Joyce. All in favor?
Aye. Joyce, aye.
Thank you.
Good, yeah. Look forward to meeting her in the future.
So I'm just out of curiosity, so is this spelling that this is correct, but it is pronounced Danielle?
I believe I copied, it is Danielle.
It is Danielle.
It is Danielle.
When we look at it, it's like Danielle, so I wasn't sure.
It is Danielle.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so let's move on to 4C, reappointment of MHOA as tobacco control agent for Mendon.
In fiscal year 2025, we have signed the contract with MHOA to be our tobacco inspector. Colin's working with them, but now it's a new fiscal year, we need to reappoint them as our tobacco and also do the appointment of the control agent for Mendon as well. So it'll be another vote.
Okay, say that last sentence again.
Reappoint of MHOA as a tobacco control agent for Mendon, need a vote for that.
Okay. So we'll have a motion first. Joyce,
I can make a motion to reappoint of MHOA as a tobacco control agent for Mendon.
I'll second the motion.
all in favor?
Joyce,
Aye.
aye.
Alan,
Joyce,
aye.
aye. And Joyce, aye.
Aye, Joyce.
Thank you.
Okay, now that was the second part of that.
Here it is, right, at the memorandum of understanding, you have a second motion? Because you have C and D there.
These, well, that's separate topics, so once we get the vote for the reappointment, now we gotta talk about the contract.
Oh, okay, got it.
Okay, so I'm free to sign this and return to you.
If the board is, so again, because of the new fiscal year, we have a new contract with MHOA. It's a memorandum of understanding for them to do the tobacco control services with the town of Mendon. Again, it's with the grant. Again, Colleen's worked with them very closely, but because of the new fiscal year 26 new contract of memorandum of understanding, board needs to vote on it. If approved, Ellen will need to sign it.
Okay, so that's all of Exhibit A. Or is that?
This is emanating in the agreement. You need to sign the very last page, right?
Right. Okay, yeah, and it's all paid for by a grant.
Correct.
And it's easy in, easy out.
Yep.
Same thing we've been dealing with. Any questions on this, Tom?
No.
All right, Joyce, any questions on the memorandum of understanding?
Nope, nope, not with me.
We'll have a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the MHOA memorandum of understanding for tobacco control services amended.
Second,
All in favor?
Tom, aye.
Joyce, aye.
Alan, aye.
Thank you.
Hopefully those funds will continue. Moving right along, Tom Ryder, you're up, old business, private well regulations, draft review.
Hey, Tom, can you hear us okay?
Ken, yes,
Okay.
yes. So we're picking it up, where we left off pretty much. I think I made some, changes since our last meeting. And I did have a conversation with Colleen, but, I'm not sure if I incorporated all her thoughts into it. Perchlorate was a question. I'm not sure, is Colleen there?
Yeah.
Colin's here.
I'm here.
Okay, yeah. So I apologize because I can't find my notes from discussing after we talked. So I'm hoping that you have a sharp memory that you can let us know where I failed to put something in. So,
Okay, Tom, if I,
almost, yeah.
Tom Ryder, if I may, just so that we can all follow along, we're in different places. If, as we discuss things, if you could name the section that we're discussing, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Before we go into the section, just to, Tom mentioned something, so has there been additional information that's come to the board since our last meeting that is not in this documentation?
No, the changes I made was after our last meeting per discussion. In one of the comments, I think I.
So after,
yeah, it was-
not after our last.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
I just
was
want
like
to make
in
sure,
January.
I
Yeah,
just want to make sure nothing came through since the board last met on the topic, Tom. I know you weren't at that particular meeting. So I think you're referring to a meeting that you last participated in?
yes, yeah.
Okay. So what we have in hand is essentially what happened from the last meeting is we wanted to look at what we have in hand now and just make a determination if the board is okay with what's in hand, if there are any further questions. And the idea is to try to move forward to basically incorporate these changes, put them into a new private well regulation and start the process for a public hearing for approval.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, and I told Jack I was putting together a little PowerPoint presentation on that, just so that we go through and just kind of summarize, because a lot of the stuff in the draft is still, if you have mine, you should have my notes on the side, and there might be some
Yeah.
markouts. Yeah, okay.
So if you went to your point,
Yeah, it says commented, yeah, what says comment?
That's fine with me. I just want to make sure that like, we have two people remote,
yes,
that if, we identify the section so we can all follow along. I'm looking at two different sets of documents.
Yep.
To compare my notes.
All right, so what I have online is the most recent version that Tom Ryan has given me, and that's what has been bound for the board.
that's dated July 8th.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, very good.
So Tom, you can see that online?
Yep.
So this is exactly what the board members have in front of them for review and decision making.
Now Tom sent over, like, back in February, some comments too, thoughts. So I try to incorporate those as well back then. Not sure if you still have your notes, Tom, but maybe we can talk about those two as we're going ahead.
Yeah, as long as you've taken them and you've kind of accounted for them in the notes we have. Yeah, that's fine.
I think in the purpose you wanted to I think you wanted to note that I think you would said any condition that existed prior to the effective date of these regulations shall not be grandfathered or regarded as exempt from the regulations. I think that might be important when we come into like existing, like dug wells, and if properties exchanging hands, whether that requires a test, not. So I think that's what you're trying to get at, is like there's some testing considerations for this wells that were installed in those.
Before we get too far into the weeds, Tom, I think, Chairman, you can correct me here, but I'm thinking the way to start would be to start right at the beginning, just take each section, flow through.
Yeah, we're gonna start off on page 5.
And then,
But you were
Yes,
talking about
thank-
purpose. I'm
Purpose,
sorry.
yes.
The reason why I brought it up is because you mentioned it in the purpose section, purpose and authority.
All right, so 1.0, purpose and authority.
Yeah, is that where you wanted to place it?
that's probably a good place to put it, I think.
We could have it at the end too, so it doesn't have to be in purpose. It could probably be at the yeah, well, we could stick it in purpose, or we could stick it in at the very end.
I said leave it at the beginning.
I
That's
agree.
just my choice, what, 2
Put it
cents.
right in the, put it right in the beginning, okay.
Yep. That way it's right off the bat, people read it.
Okay, and can you just read that statement one more time?
Any condition that existed prior to the effective date of these regulations shall not be grandfathered or regarded as exempt from these regulations.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's good to have it in that, right off the bat.
Could remember my February meeting.
Okay, so that'll be inserted at the end of the present paragraph?
We could do that, yeah,
Okay.
okay. Definitions, just want to make sure that we have we have abandoned well agent, applicant. I think we're pretty good so far. Bedroom reference. Okay, certified laboratory. Do we have that in there? Yep. I didn't finish that definition. Okay.
Yeah, I just saw the word, I didn't see a definition for that one.
Can I ask you, what does bedroom have to do?
You're right. I mean, does it actually have a pop-up in the well regs?
I mean, it doesn't seem to me to be appropriate for this.
Yeah, more appropriate in the septic system conversation.
Yeah. Would it have anything to do with semi-public wells if they were doing a number of no, it only really comes in with the DEP's public water supply stuff, where they tried to figure out the size of the interim wellhead protection areas.
Right.
So it doesn't affect private wells because we already set that at 100. So we probably could eliminate it because I don't think it pops up at any place in the regs.
Okay, so we're gonna strike that.
You know, it was only referenced twice, and that's within the same sentence, the word bedroom.
Okay.
So we'll strike that out.
Good job, Jack. That was a quick search.
Control F.
Yeah, so we'll strike that. All right, so moving along, we're talking about certified laboratory, I believe.
Yeah, we have to finish that.
Okay,
Yeah. I would reference DEP approved. I think we have some language as certified laboratories in our applications. Jack?
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
And Tom, you know what too, Jack and I went over it today, but I have the insert for the blasting. I just need to make a couple of changes. Jack and I went over them today, and I have some definitions in the language. And one of my definitions has the language for the certified laboratory in it.
Okay.
okay, that would be a Mass DEP certified lab.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Someone using a lab.
No, it's Massachusetts certified.
Okay, so we're gonna insert the definition for
Yeah.
certified lab.
And what I did, Tom, is I added the definitions for blast, and I added them at the end of this definition section. I just included them, at the last one, so I started with 2.9 and went down from there for my definitions, well, our definitions.
Okay.
All right, so the word facility.
Facility. You don't have facility in there? Okay. Yeah, so I would refer to a definition for DEP. Yeah, I would refer back to the DEP's definition facility. It's it could be a structure or a series of structures on property, so I'll get the correct definition to put in there. Yep.
26, geothermal well. Are we good on that? All right. Moving along, 27.
Maximum feasible compliance, is that what we're?
Yep.
Yeah, I think, did I just add this recently? Maximum feasible compliance?
You must have.
Yeah.
You have a comment in the margin.
Yeah, so I guess it just gives the board authority to address repairs that on lots that are otherwise would not have water supply.
So I think what came out of that definition being inserted was what will the processes be? That would be something the board would have to just take into consideration. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that was one question that came up out of that. But I like it.
Yeah, just going through the list. Do we need pump test? I think, I'm not sure that really needs to be defined. I think it's kind of explained in the sections that, it's in. Are we missing anything else?
Well, it's just in definitions in general, if we were to move down to 218, the wells digger, would there be any need to have the word registered referencing that at all, Tom? A registered digger?
Yeah, I think it's now registered under DEP. It used to be DCR. It used to be DCR. Now it's DEP, so I think they changed the map. So it used to be Chapter 620 Acts of 1956, and then it got updated to MGL. Chapter 21G, Section 20. We probably could eliminate the old chapter because even though it still exists, I don't think there's any well drillers left under that chapter. DCR is not doing that anymore. So we could say Department of Environmental Protection.
Right. Okay, so we're gonna strike chapter 620 of the Acts of 1956, and we're gonna insert Mass DEP.
Well, it's already Mass General Laws, chapter and registered through Mass DEP.
Okay.
Yeah, I think even water resources, it has to be stricken because it's no longer that group. So what Tom's saying is it's Mass DEP.
Gotcha.
So what are we calling it then instead of the Water Resource Commission? What would it be?
So it's Mass DEP now. It
Okay,
used to be
okay.
it used to be DCR. Water Resource Commission, and then now it's Mass DEP.
Okay, got
under
it.
Chapter 21, yeah.
All right, we good with 2.19? Well seal. All right. That's the case. And down to 3.0, requirements for private wells and semi-public water supplies. Let's see, I have notes here that said you were gonna clean that up more. So I can see that's been,
Has it been done?
yep, that's been worked on. All right, and then we were talking about adding some ADU info.
ADU, okay. Such as more than one dwelling, such as an ADU or condominium or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we had already run into that situation over on the Hopedale side of Mendon where the multifamily structures, I can't remember the name of the street off of Dudley Road. But one well was gonna serve like 2 or 3 units within one structure.
And
And then, of course, ADUs have popped up. So I believe that's why I have the notes that we were gonna add some ADU info to that section.
okay, so should we put that in the definition then?
Well, if I'm reading the margin correctly. ADU questions, retest quantity, and quality to ensure. Okay,
Yes.
same lot. Okay, so you did cover that. I just don't see the word, or the term ADU mentioned.
Yeah.
And I don't know at this time how important that is or not, depending upon, we're gonna sort of have a placeholder section to address ADUs. So that might be a more appropriate section to address ADUs in general. I don't know what my fellow board members feel about that.
Well, I would agree, given that it's still sort of up in the air as to the ADU definitions and how the states responding to it. I would say a placeholder, make a reference, but I would say for our purposes, I don't think we necessarily need to worry about a definition at this point.
Okay.
Well, I think on the definitions, we should add what the state definition of an ADU is.
And the definition, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
And then as far as, so are we going to allow an ADU to tie into an existing well on the property, or are we gonna require that ADU to have its own well?
Is that a question that was addressed in the ADU bylaw?
I'm not sure. Tom, do you know? I mean, how do you feel about multiple residences? Because an ADU would be a residence tying into an existing well. Do you think that the ADU should have its own separate infrastructure?
So are we talking like an ADU is going to be a theoretically it would be like a relative, but it could be somebody else too, right?
Right.
It's going to be a smaller structure that is sharing the same lot.
Right.
And I think what I think is that it should be at least brought to the board with an alternative analysis on how they're going to, whether they should be drilling another well or having the existing well meet all the setback requirements from the ADU and all the testing requirements over again.
But what about if you have an ADU that the owner is proposing, but they're proposing to use it as rental income?
Right.
Don't you think that then it should have its own separate infrastructure?
At this time, I believe it should have its own storage and its own water.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I think what could possibly happen is initially, someone could be building it for a family member.
Mm-hmm.
But when that family member no longer lives there for whatever reason, it's gonna become rental income.
Right.
Okay, we've seen that with in-law apartments. Someone puts an in-law apartment in because they have a child that's getting married and it's gonna be a cheap place for them to live. And when they move on, now it becomes rental income. I mean, so if you can't really go by what someone initially proposes.
No, and that's why
I agree with that,
I
I
think
agree.
it should be separate.
right.
Just because you need that entanglement, and the thing is that there's a lot of, push because of the housing crisis for these ADUs that it's obvious that they're not gonna just contain family members, it's for income as well. And we're gonna have one coming before us
Mhm.
soon.
Yeah, and I've heard stories of closer to the city where someone has a 2-car garage and now they have town water and town sewer and they're able to run the town water and town sewer into that structure
Correct,
and they turn it into rental income.
yes,
And they're encouraged to do so
yes,
because, as you mentioned, the supposed housing shortage.
yep,
We know what happens. Things grow out from the city and eventually they're going to come here, if they haven't come here already.
Mm.
My fear is, because Mendon is structured the way Mendon is, that down the road, I would not be surprised if people find ways of subdividing that ADU off
mm-hmm,
to its own lot. And now it's worth more. And if it can be sold.
But now you're splitting off ADUs, because ADUs can be in the attic of a home, is considered an ADU. A basement of the home could be an ADU. Attachment to the home could be an ADU. And if there's only 3 bedrooms in the house and they're adding 1 bedroom ADU, you're gonna have someone get an entire septic system, those septic systems.
Well, if it's within the same structure, they may have to modify their septic system.
right, they'll have to upgrade it.
If
But if
they,
the system's already built for a 4th bedroom,
Then
the
they should,
ADU's 4th bedroom.
yeah,
then they're good.
that's a different, that's something different.
No, it's not, if it's built in, if the ADU is connected to the home, they should be able to plug into their well water and the septic system as is.
if the well and the septic will support it.
Sure, yeah, because anytime anybody does a renovation, let's just look at it from a renovation perspective, which is kind of what you're describing. Without using the term ADU, if somebody just
Correct,
does a
they're just adding on another bedroom.
right, so if somebody just does a renovation and they're adding, then of course you would have to get raised, does the existing septic system support renovation? If it didn't, there would have to be a
Correct.
correction to
Correct.
that system to then support the renovation.
Mm-hmm.
So in that description you use for ADU, that would have to apply.
So if they build the ADU downstairs in the basement, that's their 4th bedroom. Septic system designed for a 4th bedroom.
If it is designed for four bedroom, yes.
Which majority will be 4-bedroom design systems. So what then? You're gonna tell them to get a new septic system then? And a new well?
No.
Is the home?
Only if.
Well, that's what I'm asking, is it gonna be
Only
separated?
if it's in the same structure.
So if it's separated structure, it's gonna get their own systems.
If it's a separated structure, I would imagine, depending upon the location of that structure, they may not be able to run it into that septic
Right.
system, even if there was room.
Plus too, you potentially have you might be limiting a tremendous amount of properties from having it if you were to force them to put in another system because of the requirements of distance and all the others within that property. They'd have to have a pretty damn good sized property in order to put another system in.
a lot of properties in Mendon are on the larger side.
A lot of, but there's a lot that aren't. All I'm saying is you're limiting right there the property size. So there's a lot of places that won't be able to do an ADU, but they'd be restricted to the type of ADU they could do. Probably have to fall into Jack's description where they're doing it within the home, expanding the basement or expanding the upstairs, that they do a little addition on the side. And then they could make it all part of the same system if it fell within the design parameter of what that house supports.
I think because there's no clear information from the state yet, it's very confusing.
So that's why I'm thinking at this point, it's good to have the definition you want to put in here. But I say let's not get too caught up in the weeds at this moment for this purpose of this discussion. And just have it, the ADUs to come.
To be determined.
To be determined.
But Tom, what were you gonna say?
Well, so regarding the septic is, if it's not designed, first of all, we would have to look at what the design is, if they're gonna approach us with an ADU for an existing house. Whether the septic system can, handle the extra flow. I think we're gonna find that most systems are designed for the existing house and not to handle extra. So I'm gonna say 99%. There might be a couple that someone designed a 5-bedroom and only built a 4-bedroom house. That being said, the system will have to be constructed to meet Title V for the whole facility, the whole lot. So that could mean that either we've handled this in the past by either they have to find another location for the septic system, or if they built trenches, they potentially could add another trench or two. Sometimes it's not that easy to do so without destroying the old system. So they have to surgically do it. So they're not really saving that much more money because they have to be very careful on where they place the fill, where they bring the equipment over, how they bring the backfill back in. So it is very surgically done, and it can still cost about the same amount. So
Yes, I'd be
that's
more,
for ADUs.
if it was a freestanding ADU, that the possibility of it being sold off as opposed to Jack's scenario of being like a finished basement. That I would probably look at differently than I would a freestanding structure.
Right, and that was one of the concerns.
Yeah.
When they were discussing this, some people wanted, the only way they wanted to grant an ADU was it had to be attached to the existing structure, and that got shut down.
Yeah.
So,
So you're talking about though an ADU, then if that were the case, completely on its own separate lot.
no, on the same lot.
Well, what I'm getting at is just to quote the sell-off part. If you're gonna sell off that ADU and it's on the same lot as the existing home, but not attached, how does that work?
You'd have to go to the planning board
Subdivide the
and
lot,
subdivide the lot,
because this ADU is gonna have its own address.
right?
Okay, so I mean, if you live at 110,
Right?
this ADU could be 110A.
Yeah,
So it doesn't have to be a family member.
right.
Right.
There are no restrictions on who goes in there. As of right now,
Mhm.
okay? That whole topic is evolving.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so we need to kind of move on here in an organized fashion. So let's go back to our section 3.0 requirements for private wells and semi-public. Are we okay with 3.1 and 3.2?
Yes.
Should we say public water supplies, also known as serve more than one dwelling, such as condominium or an ADU, for
Yeah.
example? That
Yeah.
make more sense?
Yeah, that's good, because that gets both of those bases covered.
Where are we putting that?
3.1.
Like at what point?
Semi-public water supplies, also known as Certain more than one dwelling?
such as,
Oh, such as, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or for example,
yeah, or for example.
Okay.
right. Applications require Board of Health meeting and vote for approval to proceed.
I would say that sounds good.
An alternative analysis provided by the applicant demonstrating design, construction, and operation requirements and that not permitted would be manifestly unjust. I'm not sure of the legal term on that. Manifestly unjust is like they lose all potential benefit of their property, which is not the case. But to me, they need more than just a little feel-good story. They need to know, it's got to be,
Something that makes sense.
yeah, right. So I don't know about manifestly unjust, whether that's appropriate.
I'm not up on my vocabulary, but I like that. Whether it's,
Well, yeah,
you know, I think that pretty much covers
actually,
my vocabulary.
yeah, I guess the term actually is still pretty good. It doesn't means clearly, obviously, and undeniably unfair.
Yeah,
So it doesn't mean that they'll lose all benefit. Okay. So it still has to meet the same or greater private wellhead protections. They can't step back and ask for variances. Now, in the same section, I'm getting that each well shall be located on the same facility that it serves. Under special circumstances, each party would have to be aware of responsibilities, deed notification, and format acceptable to the board for approval.
yeah, I think that's where that discussion came out of that development, like I said, that's off of Dudley Road where there are multifamily homes. You plowed that street, Brook,
Oh, Brookfield?
yeah, Brookview. Yeah,
Cul-de-sac,
yeah,
yeah,
but they're attached,
correct.
2 or 3 units
Mhm.
per building.
Yep.
So that's where that came out of. So that, in other words, it's clearly defined who's responsible for maintaining the well, testing the well, repairing the well pump if the well pump were to go. You can't have 3 units sharing a well and then 2 units deciding they don't want to pay for a new well pump. Nobody has any water.
Okay.
All right, permit requirements.
I don't think that's changed from the original.
Yeah, I have no issue with that.
Yeah, I don't see any changes either as I compare them. All right, so moving on.
I don't know why I highlighted it in red. Maybe there was something, but maybe I moved it.
I'm not sure. But I'm good with that section.
Right, yeah, I probably just adjusted it slightly from the original. Okay. This is pretty much all the same. This is like pretty much the application
Yeah.
process, what they need to submit.
Yeah.
Make sure that everything jives 5.5.
Do we move, where do we move to? I'm lost here.
We're at 3.2.
Yeah,
Yeah, 3 points.
We did
Yeah,
that,
we're
yeah.
moving along to the checklist
Okay.
for each private well constructed.
the references of section 5.5, water quality analysis, see section 5.5. Just want to make sure that matches.
Yeah, it is 5.5.
Okay. So yeah, everything is pretty much the same for the 3.2 and 3.3.
Yeah, and then moving along to 3.4. That just gives us the ability to add conditional analysis if necessary.
Yep.
3.5. 3.5, I have a note here that we were running that by town council, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, I'm not sure why. Is there a prior to the transfer of the property title? So maybe, I'm not sure, maybe we need to tell them what a transfer is. Like, would it be the same if the, the kids inherited and moved in? To me, it's a transfer, you're selling a piece of property to someone new coming in. So I'm not
We'd
sure.
have to, we'd have to define that, because we'd have to tease that out some more, because it doesn't exclude, like, say like there's a death in the family, the parents pass and it goes to the kids. It passes to the kids, that's a transfer of title. Technically, they have to comply with 3.5. Unless we say excluding inheritance, sometimes when people
Make it-
first get married, a house could be in one spouse's name and then they get married and then they transfer it into the other. But technically, right now, that would be.
Yeah, I have another note here. It has 6 months to bring into compliance. So it looks like we were gonna add some language that if it didn't pass, they had a specified time period to bring it into compliance.
That's where we were going with it, right? Like, what happens if suddenly there's a condition where it doesn't meet the MCL? There's you find trichloroethylene in the water. And maybe it's not, maybe it just triggers the MCL.
Yeah.
Then, they shouldn't be drinking it. It should be reported, they should treat it, yeah. That'd be like the worst case scenario, so I think, if we look at it similar to Title V. I think
Exactly.
that would solve a lot of the issues, such as, if you have if you submitted a Title V inspection report because it triggers Title V, you're submitting a well analysis report as well.
Mhm.
And if you don't have to do a Title V, then you don't have to do the well analysis. Now, if you find out there's a problem with the septic system, you have, the Board of Health, can grant some extensions, and usually the, bank doesn't allow for it and wants everything fixed before they move in, which is like they're the biggest enforcers on it. Perhaps, we give the same conditions as, well, I
Yeah,
think it should be reported.
What if, and then for the transfer, and property title, what if we added that language, in Title V that a transfer is not, and then it has the examples of transfer between, you know,
Children.
children,
grandparents.
grandparents, what if we added that in there? If the
I
board,
would just reference it because there's like 10 or so
yeah,
descriptive measures, so that would take up the whole, yeah. So as,
Okay, so that particular area that you're talking about, Colleen, has a title, a section.
yeah,
So we'll just refer to section,
right, of
Oh,
Title V,
yeah.
that's what Tom's saying too.
yeah, I agree with that. Tom, Victor?
Wasn't this section kind of about making sure that the testing is being done adequately with a time period with regard to transfer property? Is that a key element of that?
Well, I think that's why we stated the,
It still is, but we're just going up here at the very beginning and clarifying what a transfer title is.
Right,
And then they still have to comply with the rest of the paragraph, if that transfer, if they don't meet that definition of a transfer.
so with regard to the definition that's here, just, so I understand it, it talks about, prior to a transfer of property title, private well will have a water sample collected and tested if the transfer occurs 3 years or less from the last sampling and testing. Should that word less be more,
3 years or more for the
Right.
last sampling.
not less?
Right.
Because if it's 3 years or less, that would be an okay period of time not to have testing done. But if you go more than 3 years, then you might on transfer want to have a test done, right?
Yep, so it should be 3 years or more from the last sampling and testing.
Does that make sense, Tom?
yeah, actually, I was typing in something and I just messed it up.
Mhm.
Let me relook at that again.
And
Prior
so
to the
it's-
transfer in property title, private wells will have a water sample collected and tested. If the transfer occurs 3 years
Or more.
or more from the last sampling and testing.
Correct.
Does that sound like it should be more versus the word less?
Yeah. Then I wanted to say, reference when the transfer is section 301 in Title V. I would reference that somewhere in there too. If prior to transfer property title, and then put in like in parentheses, in accordance with Title V, section 301. I say 15301. Private wells will have a water sample collected and tested if the transfer occurs 3 years or more from the last sampling and testing.
So if more is the correct term, then whatever happens 3 years or less as far as the transfer goes, it wouldn't matter,
Correct.
correct?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, but the
More or
question, well, was that?
more or less.
Well, that's the question, no, but it still goes to, what if a transfer in the 4th year was between a family member? Would we still want to see a test done?
Yeah,
Or not?
yeah.
Well,
And then
so-
I'll say a test is deemed complete if it was submitted to the Board of Health with all the required information. Because they could have said, oh, yeah, no, I did the testing. I'm good. Or they might have just did analysis for bacteria when we want more.
Right.
So like a test is deemed complete.
But to your question, right, because your question hasn't been answered. You said a transfer to a family member?
Say to a family member,
Right. He's covering that with referring to Title V, Section 301, I believe, as to the definition of a transfer.
okay?
Because some transfers are more significant than other transfers.
Well, a transfer, it's not a transfer because if it meets that definition. So like, we have a property that transferred, we thought that it transferred, but per Title V, it did not because the owner took back paper. So that's not considered a transfer, just like if it went from a father to a son, say, that's not considered a transfer, therefore it wouldn't be subject to any type of testing, because it's not considered a transfer.
Yeah, there's some exemptions to that too. I mean, so it can get pretty complicated. But it's intentional. Yeah, there was a lot of complaints when Title V came out. There was a lot of complaints because there wasn't any flexibility. There were trust transfers, and that was requiring Title V inspections, and then there were. So, if you look at 301.
C4. That's paid. The board could eliminate that one. The board, you could say section 15-301, paragraphs 1 through 3 only, if you wanted to.
Yeah, in Section 4, I mean, if you eliminate that, I mean.
I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting that you do.
Yeah, I wouldn't, because I can think of a lot of situations where people of a certain age decide to protect their property, so to speak, by putting it in a trust. But they're not leaving the property, they're not really giving up ownership of the property, they're just holding that property in a different manner.
Yeah, well, putting a property in trust that was in the transfer anyway.
Well, that's why Jack just pulled up the definitions of a transfer.
Under Title V, no.
So under Title V, it's not considered a
And if
transfer.
we're gonna incorporate that into our well regulations,
Right.
no.
But from a practical perspective.
From a legal perspective,
it's
it's,
Title V.
it's a change of ownership,
It's considered a transfer
change of
in a
ownership.
trust.
You take it, from Allen to Allen's Family Trust.
Yeah.
That's a change of ownership.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I think what's.
That's why it's required to be done by deed. Anything that's required to be done by deed is a change of ownership.
Oh. But
It's a different way of holding the property.
Correct.
You don't necessarily give up possession of it.
No, I've seen irrevocable trust and revocable trust come
Right.
through on property transfers.
Right, and you have to be careful. I know someone who did
irrevocable?
he did the,
Thinking they were protected?
yeah. You have to really make sure you do the one that you want to do, because like he can't sell that property now and move because he.
It's irrevocable.
Yeah,
Well, I like the, how Title V outlines it.
yeah, so we'll go with that as Tom suggested, and So the definition of transfer, under 3.5, it's gonna be referred to Title V,
Correct.
and there you're good, without listing all that stuff and taking up all kinds of space. All right, so if we're good with 3.5, let's move down to 4.0, well construction or destruction permits.
Yeah, I think I also wanted to mention in that section as well that, you know, that a test is complete only if it's submitted to the Board of Health. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, where are we now?
4.0, well construction or destruction permits.
Yeah, just to change it to DEP.
Right. Yep.
And I didn't have anything else in that section.
I didn't either.
No.
In the entire section of 4.0?
Correct.
Okay.
So Joyce, anything?
No, I'm good right now.
All right, so we'll move on to 5.0, well construction permit requirements.
Yeah, you just added on the PLS and the, or Massachusetts registered, an MRS sanitarian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Now when we get down to that section 5, a well driller digger's name and license number as it appears, do we need to get rid of Water Resource Commission?
Yes.
Okay, so we're striking that, and I see DEP is
Yep.
in its place. Okay, very good. Joyce, you still with us?
Yep, I'm here.
All right.
I'm getting it every time, so.
All right, fantastic. We're moving down to 5.2, well location requirements.
I had nothing.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with all of 5.2. Looks like 5.3, section 10. We were talking about the,
Okay, yeah, this is I'm not sure where this came from in the original.
I
Injection
believe
wells.
you're talking about like water softeners and water filtration systems.
Yeah, but I think the original may be like how people just, you know, how there are some cases where you can discharge like like contaminated materials and stuff. This is the case. It's like a class 5 injection well, which typically requires just a like a notification to DP that one's installed. Actually, they don't even have a notification anymore. They just have a checklist that you're supposed to comply with. So it's like
Okay,
a certified location that you have a dry well that is and you can discharge backwash water into it. You just need to locate it.
For some reason in my notes, I have where shall be prohibited. I have the word conditional written in.
Yeah, the thought was we should change prohibited to conditional.
All right, I know up at the Misco Hill School, the water filtration system that takes all the magnesium that's up there out of the well, actually goes into its own leach field essentially.
Yeah, and that you can do. That is that is approved by DEP under, and it used to be a permit, now it's not anymore, so.
Okay.
But there is requirements still, so. They
Okay,
just
so
don't,
are we staying with what I'm reading? The construction of injection wells for liquid waste disposal shall be prohibited and shall not be connected to the septic system. That's where we stand.
well, I'm gonna say that, so for example, if you needed to put in like a reverse osmosis or a, softener, there's a discharge that is required, so it's either you're discharging onto the top of the ground or into a well. And either way, it's going into the ground, so.
But it's not going into your septic system.
It shouldn't go in the septic system.
Okay. So this statement is accurate.
It should be conditional, if that's what your term was before.
No, I don't know if it was. I know we discussed, instead of saying prohibited, we discussed the word conditional. So I don't know if that meant that we were gonna take it case by case.
Right, because there may have been situations where it would be discussed as opposed to flat out prohibiting it, it would be looked at possibly.
All right, so which direction do we wanna go in? I mean, one way we're hard lined,
Correct.
the other way we're willing to listen to the reasoning of the person who wants to connect it.
So I would defer to Tom's thought on this concept. Would it make sense for the board to have a conditional situation, Tom, versus just flat out prohibiting this?
Right, so they should be installing them for treatment operations. That's why you would have it. But if it's for anything, so there's like 5 classes of injection wells. And the first 4 are for dirty water. The 5th one is for stormwater, for backwash water.
So I'm
those
hearing
should
that,
be-
I'm hearing that the word conditional is a better choice.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're gonna strike prohibited. And we're gonna put conditional in.
And this is on number 10.
Yeah.
Number 10, yeah.
So
With the word and after it.
Mm-hmm.
and shall not be connected to the septic system.
Yep.
All right, I think that's important right there.
Okay, so we're gonna conditionally allow it, but not in the septic system. So that gives them the ability to put it into a different type of structure. School did.
Yeah.
They actually built a small scale leach field. All right, moving right along.
Yeah, DEP guidance. I think DEP
Yeah,
is,
sorry, yeah.
Number 15.
Number 5.
5.4?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50.
Right.
Sorry.
Do you have the normal well requirements?
Yeah, that was 5.3, section 15, right?
Correct, yes.
Line 15.
Yeah,
All right, so moving along, everybody's good. Looks like we're down to 5.5, water sampling procedure.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a note on that one that where after the well analysis information, where it starts to say, should the first water test results exceed? That's where I had a note about more legal thought for some reason. I don't know why.
Okay, so we're at 5.5, what section, Tom? 1, 2, 3?
It was after the well analysis information.
Okay, after.
Yeah. And it starts out by saying, should the first water test results exceed?
Mhm.
That section, for some reason, I had a note about, should this be given more thought legally?
Okay, so does everybody understand where we're at? We're
Are we
on.
on 5.5, number 1?
No, we're at 5.5 at the end of well analysis. So we're actually on page 11
Should we say?
at the top of the page.
Should we say in
Oh,
section?
okay.
5.5, then move down to the analysis?
I thought,
Are we go with 5.5, number 1?
we can, I was just following along with Tom.
I just didn't want to run out of
Okay.
confused Joyce, Tom.
Oh, yeah, I was good up until from 5.5 all the way down to the point that I just had raised.
Number 2, number 3, you're also good with?
So I'm good with 5.5, 1, 2, 3, yes.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm good.
we're discussing 3 now.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah. We're
Okay,
we're in 5.3 now. We're after the well analysis.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, so I see Tom Ryder has added test and treatment deed notice.
Should the first water test results exceed a primary secondary standard, the applicant may re-elect to test the constituents that exceed the standards prior to treatment device for confirmation. This test is not considered the second required test. If it comes back failed, they should put the deed notice, do the treatment, put the deed notice. So where a treatment device is required based on the first water analysis, the second required sample analysis is a drinking water treat.
Okay, so someone does a water test and it fails.
Yeah.
They put a treatment system in, test it, and it passes. So you're saying a deed notice, that obviously that particular well requires water treatment in order to pass.
Yeah, so they could do the first test and it doesn't pass, but hey, they could say, oh, we didn't flush the water enough at the time, and that's why there was, iron or something. They retest without a water treatment and iron comes back clean. All right.
Okay.
They don't have to do the deed notice, they don't have to do the treatment, but then they just have to retest again for everything at the kitchen tap for the second round, and everything should be clean. They could elect to do that repeat test. They decide not to, like, I don't want to risk it, I'm just going to put the treatment system in, put the deed notice, and then do the second test to show everything's clean.
Okay, I understand now.
And were we on solid ground legally with that?
Mhm.
Do we think? I think that was probably the question I had at the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to make sure it reads correctly, though.
That's all I had on that.
Excellent.
Oh, there was one other note. PFAS. Do we need to, should there have been something about PFAS?
Well, isn't that something else that the state is still
Is that another placeholder?
trying to figure out? Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a placeholder, but I don't know if we have any, they seem to be, if I understand it correctly, they were kind of getting real strict on that, and then they seem to have backed off. I don't know why they backed off, but all of a sudden it's not as, can't think of the right word I want to use, but it's just not as in front of us as it was.
So at this point, would we have any concern in not addressing it right now and just let it go for a future modification? Just let it be as it.
Tom Ryder, what are your thoughts on PFAS?
PFAS is difficult. I couldn't really get guidance from the DP for private wells. Actually, they just put out an updated private well guideline. There's an updated. I didn't read PFAS in it, so the 4 parts per trillion is the test is the goal right now, and it's to me it's I think if you're under 20 you're okay parts per trillion. I think the goal is 4. It was going to go to 4, then it was going to go to 0, but seeing the new administration, I think everything got pushed back a little bit.
Okay.
But PFAS is the fluoride bond just does not break apart so easily. So it mimics the calcium bond, so it gets into the bone. So with the concentrations, I just don't, I'm not an expert in the concentrations. I just don't know what the threshold is. But I heard some scary stuff though.
Yeah, well, the unknown is always scary.
So PFAS, I'm not sure you want to put that put it as a holder for while we get some more information.
Placeholder statement?
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
That leaves a spot for it.
Yeah.
When we get more information on it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good with that. So do we want to do that in that section?
Right.
Or actually, do we want to add that to the next paragraph, like number 10?
Yeah. I'll make it a number 10.
Yeah, why don't we make it a number 10? To be determined. Yeah, more guidance.
Okay.
Okay, so I just found the DP guidelines. It's just a recommended test. Above 20 parts per trillion. It says to resample right now.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll just add that as a 10, and
Yep.
when we get more guidance from the state, we can just, clarify it. All right, so we'll move on to 5.6, water quality.
Okay.
The items that I had for this section, it wasn't so much what's there now, but first question was, does this section sufficiently address the issues of water not meeting the standards? And the other question I had was, should there be an established time frame in which all wells, should we establish a policy of all wells having testing done in a particular time frame?
In the town?
So the reason I bring that up, and I believe there's a couple of places that do it. I'd have to go and find it, but, so if we were, play devil's advocate here, let's say we wanted to, as a board of health, be concerned with the overall water quality in the community and have an idea how that water quality is doing throughout the community. Now I get that good judgment would be that people should test their water on a periodic basis. Joyce uses 3 years, for example. I think every 3 years she tests. One can say, is that too often, or maybe one could go longer. But from the standpoint of a Board of Health trying to get hold of or be able to define a metric as to how good the water quality is in the community, should there be something that says households should do basic tests every X number of years?
We made that recommendation in there, but I mean, one, who's going to monitor that? Who's going to review the analysis of it? We would have to increase our budget by tens of thousands of dollars to do that.
So, not that we would do the testing, but simply the homeowner, what would be said to the homeowner is, okay, every 5 years, every 10 years, what we're asking you to do
Right.
is to do a basic test on your water and submit the results to the Board of Health to have on record.
But
So
who's
completely
gonna,
voluntary.
who's gonna review that though, so that analysis? I mean, what are we gonna do with that? Are we to have it filed with the Board of Health office? But what if once we receive that and there's something in there that they don't meet the standard, who's gonna enforce that? Or is the board gonna take it to the next level and say, oh, well, we reviewed your analysis and you need a water filtration system or, whatever it is that you need? Who's gonna do that? We would have to hire Tom, and now you're adding to your budget tens, thousands of dollars,
I think,
not to mention administration.
yeah, I think just like we experienced over at the lake, private wells, some people want their wells to be private.
Right.
If something is not going right, they want to know about it and they want to deal with it in their own way, in their own time frame. Now, we do have public water supplies.
Oh,
in
yeah.
town. So you may be able to get almost the same temperature of the water quality,
Based on that.
and those tests are already submitted to us.
Yep.
So it would just be a matter of having an independent party analyze that, and we would have to budget for that.
Not to mention, then if we get it back and, there's something that doesn't meet the standard and this independent party, advises the board of that, and now we're gonna pursue that with, what if it's, how many households are there in Mendon?
2,000.
2001.
So what if there's 500 of them that don't? That's an enormous undertaking. Enormous.
Yeah, it's much easier if you had a public water supply that supplied the whole town.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because now you have,
Centralized testing.
right, and you would essentially have a water treatment facility. So when something comes back that's not where it should be, you treat it.
Right, and that's why these are called private well regulations. You know,
I'm throwing it out there as a.
No, I mean,
Discussion
yeah,
point, that's all.
that's scary though. I would, as a per household on a well, I mean, all of us are really.
well, and our wells fluctuate.
Right,
You can have a well that, you know, produces different things seasonally. You know,
Yeah.
depending upon the depth of the well, depending upon what aquifer you're tapped into.
Yeah.
That would be a hard one to follow through.
With every homes, with every residence, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, where are we at here? I believe we're section 5.6.
Let's go with the section.
Okay. Sodium. So we go down to 5.7, if no one has any objections, well completion requirements.
It's fine with 5.7.
And 7.3. Yeah, that's there, back fresh non-allowed in septic system. Also, if water quality system is required.
Maybe a recorded deed notice. I'm sorry, I think we skipped. I probably should have, a recorded deed notice.
We went from
574.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna insert 574, required, yep, okay.
We'll need to probably prepare like an acceptable notice, like similar that we do for the Title V
Yep.
requirements, so.
The only thing I see at 5.9, well alterations, I believe we were inserting the word geothermal or hydrofracking.
Yeah, that's after number 2, 5.92.
5.92, yeah. So, moving along, 5.10.
Hello?
Note 510.5, a recorded deed notice.
I think number 2, were we substituting what was Xed out there for Department of Environmental?
Yes, it's need to reference DEP.
Yeah.
So it's required by DEP?
Yes, number 2,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
Just move on, where are we? What number was?
Well, I
Seven.
think we're heading to 6, to go to 6,
Yeah,
destruction, well destruction.
I think I'm all the way down to 6.4.
I was
right
okay
now. Joyce, are you all set with 6.0 well destruction?
Yep, yep.
All right, Tom?
Yep.
All right, so we're on 7.0 variances.
And I'm okay with 7.
Joyce, anything on variances 7.0?
Nope, I looked at that, that's fine. Yep, 7.1 makes sense.
So we move on to penalties. I have a note for some reason that says no criminal.
Yes, non-criminal.
Non-criminal disposition.
Right.
Okay, so we adding those words?
What is the bylaw? That you have any bylaw, penalties allowed?
Yeah, for non-criminal disposition, so we should probably put that in, what that is in there.
Okay, so under 8.1?
Yeah, the non-criminal disposition that the town adopted, you know,
It's in that notes and regulations. It's in the-
yeah, we just could copy and paste it into
Yeah,
that
non-criminal
disposition.
disposition. Okay, I like it. I don't want to be deposed. Please, don't depose me. Everybody's good, we're on 9.0 disclaimer.
Well, before we get to 9.0, just with regard to, are we okay with the finding element? Is that sufficient? Or would they have to, should there be any more specificity? Keep it the way it is.
You guys can add whatever fine you want.
I think when a copy of the fines that we have in the dumpster regulations, it specifies non-criminal disposition fines on that.
For,
Like actual dollar value?
He does actual, I don't know what the dollar value is, but we have it on dumpster regulations.
So
The fine
would be
fee structure.
under that non-criminal
yeah,
element?
that's how you would enforce that.
Got it, okay.
Non-criminal disposition can be used for local bylaws only, cannot be used to enforce like CMR regulations or Title V. It can't be used for that, only for local bylaws.
Okay.
All right, so if everybody's good, we're on 9.0 disclaimer.
I'm good with that.
Joyce, if you're good with,
Yep,
All right,
I'm
we're
good
gonna
with, I'm
move
good
on.
with that, yeah,
we're gonna move on to 10.0.
Yeah, I'm good with 10.
me too.
I'm good too. Colleen, anything?
Nope.
Jack? Okay,
Sign it, we're good, Alan.
we look like we made it to the end.
I'll have some additions. And then somewhere in here, and Tom, I'll send it to you, probably on Monday for the blasting and stuff for you to take a look at, and I appreciate your input into it too. There's some of it has the definitions where it obviously has to go, and then a couple of paragraphs on, you know, the testing and whatnot, pre and post blast.
Okay, so we'll find a place to incorporate that in here.
Yep, yeah, wherever you want. I mean, I was thinking, you know, maybe just before well deconstruction, or wherever you wanna put it. And then the definitions would just be at the end of the definition section, whatever number that it ended up with. I numbered them in accordance with this current draft, so you'll see.
All right,
I just gotta
so
make a couple of tweaks after Jack and I talked about them today.
2 weeks, we should be able to wrap it up by our next meeting.
I don't see why not.
Okay, and then 2 weeks after that,
You ready? We could,
Public hearing?
what do we need for notices?
10 days in the newspaper.
10 days.
Yeah.
So I guess as long as we had enough time to put it out there.
Yeah, because what I can do is I can put it once the board, because we're not meeting, the next one's not until August 13th. So if the board's good with the final revisions, I can place it in the newspaper for the following Tuesday on Friday.
Yep.
So we'll be ready for the next meeting right after the 13th.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Get it done in the month of August. All right. Tom Ryder, thank you very much, unless you have something else for us.
Oh, you stay with us.
Oh,
Stay,
okay.
stay with us for the next one.
Good job, Tom.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job, John, thank you.
My excitement at seeing the end.
Into the, yep.
All right. So we're gonna move on.
All right, so.
BOH admin updates, please.
When I was submitting, we're on the engineering inspection revolving account discussion. When I submitted my invoices to Tracy for fiscal year 25 to close out the year, she came over to me and told me that they did not have enough funds in the revolving account. But after an erroneous error on my part, I put an invoice in that was not engineering related, so she took it off and we had to make to pay the invoices. But the current revolving account has a total of $95 in it right now. And we are having septic systems inspected, we're having septic system plan reviewed. And Alan, when I brought this to your attention, you asked me to go around the Blackstone Valley Partnership to get their cost. I've done that. So for septic engineering for Hopedale, and again, I'm just gonna stick with residential for now. Hopedale is $600. Uxbridge is $650. Douglas is $600. Northwood is $650. Blackstone is $750. Upton is $575. And Mendon is at $425. In doing some research, $425 has been basically the standard septic review and inspections. Back then we had Lenny Izzo, which was $75 per inspection. Now we have Steve Donatelli, which is $100. So the rates were adjusted as time went on, and the revolving account now shows that.
Okay.
I'm just confused about the 4.25 number for a minute.
Now, 4 quarters will be our charge.
That's what, oh, we charge 4.25
$425, yes.
now.
Right now, yes.
Not 4.50.
It's not $450.
Okay.
Okay, and Joyce, do you have anything on this, or do you want me to proceed?
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, more importantly, if you look at the sheet that Jack provided us with, and we look at what our costs are, we're, regardless of the other towns and the partnerships, we're not meeting our costs.
Oh, that's correct, the minimum.
Because our costs are coming in at $660 on average.
On average, yes.
Well, so based on our discussions, we thought it was 5 something, so has that changed? It's retoughed?
It's $300 for Stephen Donatelli, and if, with Tom Ryder's reviews, he's at $220, but his average plan review is 3, so that's gonna bring it up to $330.
And Tom said to include 3 reviews in his,
As a standard.
as a standard.
Okay.
Yeah, so the review, and the as-built.
Yep.
And sometimes they bounce it back and forth a few times. So I think on average, probably do 2 to 3 on average. So it's more than 2.
So what, when you say sometimes, so what I don't want to do is unnecessarily create a cost to everybody across the board because of the sometimes situation. I believe in our verbiage for our application, we tell the folks when they apply that if their system requires, I think, additional inspection,
Additional review or inspection.
review inspection, they will have to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Usually other towns give the second review for free, and then they charge like something after the second. Like if you can't get your stuff to get, there's certain things like, they need to do something to, they need to do something in order to comply with something they didn't realize, and okay, got it. Sometimes they're making changes on their own because those probably should have to pay again or pay something again. You know, it's something like, all right, everything's all set. And then suddenly like, oh, they changed their mind. They wanted to relocate the house in this location and swap the septic on that location. I don't think that's triggered for another plan review. I don't know. I could be wrong, but Jack, we typically don't charge them again if they willingly change up the septic system after approval.
Well, the question really comes down to covering your costs from an engineering perspective. So if you're gonna have to review it, you should, and I would rightfully say rightfully so, you should expect to send the town amendment an invoice for that review time. But if there's something happens in the process that comes up, that then we can say to that applicant, well, this had to be reviewed additionally because of, you're gonna pay for that additional inspection or that additional review by the engineer. But I don't want to automatically say 3 is what we need to cover our costs for if that's only a sometimes thing.
Yeah.
Because we have language in the application that tells people if the standard is 2, and this is assuming it, you can safely say it, Tom, if on a typical basis, if 2 is a good number to go by for your review, the initial review in the as-built, as a quote-unquote norm, that's what I would want to use. But if you're saying 3 is the norm, well, that would be a different story. But if 3 is a sometimes, 3 or more is a sometimes kind of thing, I would want to just use the verbiage in our application that tells people you may have to, if your application requires additional reviews, you'll have to pay additional costs.
Yeah.
Because outside the quote unquote norm. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. That's a good point. Like, I would say that 2 would be the norm then with, there are going to be conditions where they have to, I'd say have to pony up because they're either not listening or they're making wild changes that require another thorough review. So I can, going back and forth with some of the engineers, sometimes it's easy. Sometimes you just say, can you make this change? And that's all you need to do. Then we can cover that. But if they, after like the second time I do that and they don't make the change, then that's a problem. The other thing too is,
as long as we can have a justification for that added expense, because what would happen is if we use 2 as the norm from your perspective, and an applicant files an application, and for some reason along the way you had to do a 3rd one, the office or Jack would have to know that pretty much kind of right away, so that the idea would be Jack could then reach out to the applicant and say, hey, we just heard from our engineer. He's going to have to review this plan again, but be able to tell them why, because they'll probably ask why.
Yep.
And then that applicant would have to pay that additional cost for that extra review. As long as we can justify it, I would say that's what we do, as opposed to using 3, if 3 really isn't the norm, and penalizing everybody across the board to pay more if they really don't have to.
yeah, okay.
To look
Yeah,
at that re-inspection fee and make sure that it covers the time for Tom to do that inspection and Jack's admin time to reach out to the owner and then collect the fee and then turn the fee over. So maybe that re-inspection fee should be increased to reflect that time frame.
That I can see, or even, we have a little bit of a buffer. So I think the numbers we were kind of working with, we know it's 3 inspections, 3 Title V inspections by Steve, right?
But here's the thing, say like Steve goes out and does a component inspection and it's not correct and he has to do another inspection, there's another, and we're paying him to do that inspection. We haven't considered that in here.
Okay.
There's another thing too, is there's a few systems that came through that are larger systems, more complex systems. But my reviews might be going back and forth a few times with the engineer. So
Mhm.
larger
Well,
systems should already have a higher fee.
Well, to me, those would definitely be exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
Right? That's not the norm. We generally don't see highly sophisticated systems on a regular basis.
Well,
And that's why I'm saying if we have language in the application that lets people know what they're paying for, and then what will be extra should additional reviews or inspections be required. Then that particular applicant gets billed the extra, but we're not charging everybody the extra because the norm is two reviews by the engineer and 3 inspections by Steve Donatello. That would be the norm, but it sounds like.
Right,
Okay.
but this is for like systems that are larger that so we've had about 3 of them come through, and they're large and complex. So Steve would definitely be out there more often. And then
Oh, no,
I would be,
I'm trying to
so I
just get,
mean different category. That's what I'm saying. Like it's over 1,000 gallons a day.
yeah,
It's not a typical resident. This is for a commercial property. It should be higher.
well,
Because
so
it's
I'm
gonna take
trying
up
to
more
get
time.
at is, I'm trying to define a quote unquote norm. So if we have to categorize a norm for residential and a norm for commercial, I guess we could look at that if that makes sense. Because commercial will get into a little more involved systems, but I just didn't want to blanketly put a number out there that affects everybody if there's only certain people that should pay the additional because their system's gonna require more inspection or require more reviews, that's all.
Okay, my thought on this is we collect the fee from the installer when we grant the permit,
Before we can grant the permit.
before we even grant.
Yeah,
Okay, with the application.
correct.
Okay, so the installer, knowing how much our permit fee is, adds that to the quote that he gives the customer.
Sure.
All right, so Tom, I'm gonna put a septic system in for you. I know Mendon charges $450 right now, or 4 1/4, right?
Yeah, before.
4 1/4. So I'm gonna install your septic system for $30,425. I submit the application gets approved. I need an extra inspection. So now the installer is gonna get the bill, and they have 2 choices. Either they charge you the addition, the customer, or they have to eat it.
Mhm.
But we've already collected the fee. What is gonna be the cost of administering this additional billing
Mhm.
to try to collect money after the fact?
I would
So I
say,
think we need to have a reasonable average
yeah,
so that we don't have to have a whole nother billing system, so that the installer doesn't have to go back to the customer often. They're not gonna be
I don't know if
those.
it's a matter of another billing system, it's a matter of a conversation from our office to the applicant, whether that's the owner or the installer. It says, look, we've just been informed by the engineer that an additional inspection is required because of such and such. This is the cost of the additional fee, as mentioned on the application. Do you understand that?
I mean, we do have it in writing on the fee schedule,
Mhm.
but I'm willing to bet that the consumer is not aware of that.
It's not so
The
much the
installer.
schedule, I'm talking about the application and the language that we have on the application. We
Right,
do
right.
on the application, as I understand it, do say that statement, Jack can bring it up.
Is it on the actual application
That's
and
my
the fee schedule?
That's my understanding. We do tell them that,
Okay.
because I think we ran into this before. And I think we had that language put on there.
Like I said, I noticed when I was reviewing the homework that it's definitely
Well, that's just the schedule for numbers, but the application has the language I'm talking about.
Include that?
Tom, on our fee schedule, we also provide a different fee structure for larger systems. We have, up to 440 is what we're talking about right now. 441 to 2,000 is 550, and 2,000 and more is 650.
Okay, so that's included with our application.
The agreement and understanding.
Okay, good. How do we go about trying to collect on that?
I have to be told that there's an additional inspection.
Okay, and then you,
I don't know what's gonna happen. Well,
okay,
So the thought is, what would be the process? The thought I had is it a matter of simply Jack once being informed by Tom? This is where, Tom, you play a key role. You'd have to give Jack a heads up.
Yeah.
And then once Jack's informed, he does the reach out to the applicant.
I would say, up to 550, whatever the increase is gonna be. You wanna pull that form back up again, rather than 440? And then, because once you get to 660, you're dealing probably with duplexes or condos. So then have, so that 450 should be adjusted up to, and say up to 550 gallons per day. And then more than 5 to 2,000, that should be like,
Out of curiosity, to Colleen's point about the specification and the breakdown, are we following that?
For what?
When we collect the fee for the applications, are we checking to see if our fee is matching that table?
are you checking? Yeah, make sure, yeah.
So this range is being followed?
Mhm.
Okay.
and then just combine, our reviews plus Steve's reviews. What's that average coming up to? And you're saying it's coming up around 660, right? So that's average, though. That's probably based on a lot of, different types of inspections and reviews, so.
But out of curiosity, would the category of 2,000 gallons and up necessarily require more inspections than the 441 to 2,000 gallon category automatically?
Yeah,
Automatically.
yeah, because now you're dealing with, potentially nitrogen sensitive areas. It potentially could be pressure distribution. You're gonna wanna see the pump tests.
Yep.
As well.
Each
And whatever treatment units.
There's another set of inspections that's required.
So I guess,
You wanna see the startup, and you wanna see the, so they'll probably have a startup system going on, and so you wanna make sure everything's running, the alarms are running, the water test is working, the O&M manuals that are submitted. So there's a lot more inspections and reviews, so.
let me ask Jack this, how many of these different categories do you get applications for?
The majority of it is the 440, 4 bedrooms.
The 450,
Well, yeah, up to 440 gallons, so 450
450 feet?
is the majority.
Majority of what we see.
Yeah, but I will get occasionally the 550, and I believe I did get one for 650.
So out of curiosity, from the category standpoint, is it only the lowest category that's an issue here, or all these categories now?
It's gonna be all of them.
Oh, we all.
Okay, so we have 3 different tiers here to consider.
Yeah, I want to say that the one that Jack was saying 550, 650, I probably did 4 or 5 reviews on it, and then the DEP contacted me on it as well, and I was going over with him the review. He wanted to go review by review. He wanted to walk with me through it, like how, I think he needed help looking at it. to tell you the truth.
So from what you're saying, then automatically all these categories have to be bumped up
Oh, yeah.
at minimum, effective immediately.
Mhm.
Because we're below cost
Mhm.
on what we're getting.
Maybe what we should do is, for each category, Tom can, well, he already did for the first category, but for the second and third, we can find out from Tom and Steve Donatelli
Yeah.
the additional reviews and inspections.
Yeah.
And maybe come back and revisit those categories along with this one as far as setting up the tier structure. You know, the
Yeah.
fee structure for each one of these categories.
Well, we know the 451 was the one that was mentioned. So automatically we know we're in the hole.
Yep.
Because from a base perspective, the expectation, Tom does 2 reviews and then Steve does 3. So right there, cost-wise, it's 520 is what we would see for an invoice between Tom and Steve. Yeah, we're charging 450, so we're already $70 in the hole on that type of an application. But we know, again, I don't know if that would equate the other categories in that, if you could use the same, probably not, if I had to have a discussion, but we know a minimum, the 450's gotta go up to 520, but I would say an additional buffer to be realistic, maybe like 550,
At minimum, yeah.
right?
Maybe you guys should think about raising it tonight to that, and then we'll take it on
With the other two.
further review, right, and
Yeah.
figure out, but for now, so that we don't keep on going down the rabbit hole.
Well, and given that the 450 category is the majority of the applications
Right.
we review, that we get,
I'm good with that.
then we have to really take
Right,
it.
maybe just increase it now to that number,
Correct.
and then we'll continue on with the review process, so at least we're not falling farther behind.
I would agree.
And are we including my admin time for this?
Second?
Are we including my admin time for these fees?
Indirect costs, which we have been very made aware of.
Yeah, I mean, that's where that, this added little buffer came into play, you know, so if we know cost-wise, just from a straight invoicing perspective, our invoices come from Tom and Steve. So from a straight invoicing perspective, on a $450 application, our invoice is $520, right? $220 from Tom,
Mhm.
theoretically, if that's the base, $300 from Steve, right? $520. So from that perspective, just to meet costs, we gotta go up $70. But if we, which would take it to 520, but if we had to put a little extra there to say admin time, that's where the
Right,
550 should take care of that. I mean, how much?
$65 an hour.
Well, you've got to remember too, that your salary is also covered in different areas.
Correct, but that's tax-based. This isn't tax-based, this is property-based.
No, I understood, but you know, salary.
I'm specifically working on one property.
I think unfortunately, Tom, because we've tried to be so conscientious about what it costs people to do things in town, we've always tried to zero in on that cost. It either takes us a lot of time to continually review and update, and if we don't continually review and update, we get behind.
Oh, yeah, we
All right.
probably, in hindsight, what we probably should have done was reviewed the whole schedule.
But
And I think we just kind of focused on one area. We thought we were in pretty good shape with the other areas we did the review. So it, you know, we may have to go through that exercise with the other areas as well, just to make sure that we're good. That's all.
So whatever we call that bottom number for now, we need to make sure that we cover ourselves adequately. I don't know if a $30 buffer is enough.
Yeah,
And taking into consideration that if you're gonna submit a plan, or I'm gonna submit a plan, or Joyce is gonna submit a plan, we gotta pay the same rate,
oh, yeah.
you know, as all our community members.
Yeah.
So if we're at, you're proposing 550,
Well, at least 550.
all right, I think that $30 buffer isn't enough. I think I would, at minimum, go to 575, and I could see 600. I don't wanna overshoot the number, But I don't think a $30 doesn't buy us anything,
I would support a 575 number.
all right? Joyce, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. You know, having done that by myself back in the day, I would have loved to have gotten that. So I agree. I think Tom deserves that and we need to do that.
Okay, so what we're proposing for the first level, up to 440 gallons per day, we're proposing going from 450 to 575.
Right.
All right, now at 575, that should give us a buffer of 55,
Yes.
right? We're figuring our costs,
About 55
a
extra.
minimum of 520.
Right.
So, I mean, 55 really doesn't buy us much either.
But again, his salary is covered in other ways. Taxpayers pay taxes.
Oh, agreed, and as we've discussed in the past, there are some things that the Board of Health provides because the Board of Health is mandated that it has to provide those things.
Oh, absolutely.
Regardless of
Oh, yeah.
where it comes from, we have an obligation.
And if we wanted to, I would say I would support 575, and if we want to revisit as we're looking at this, I mean, we have a schedule increase coming,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's going to apply to the others. We put notices out to the community for already.
Mm-hmm.
If we start to look at these other things that we did incorporate, and then maybe another rate increase comes along with those other increases in these
Okay.
other categories that we haven't yet
Right.
reassessed, that we haven't reviewed.
Okay, all right, so I guess the proposal is for the group of septic systems that are up to 440 gallons, do we go to 575 immediately?
Yes.
That would be my, that would be my take, because we've been in the hole for a long time. Now, granted, we always know there's work coming, but if work were to stop and the invoices were to catch up, we have no money to pay the invoices.
Correct.
So, but the reality is there'll always be work coming, there'll always be things coming in for systems that will take a while to be filled, but when it comes right down to accounting, you can't be working, you have to make at least your costs, right?
Mhm.
So I would say we do it immediately.
All right, so if everybody is in agreement with that, we need a motion and a second.
Joyce, you want a motion?
Well, I thought that was a good one for you, but sure, I'll make the motion
And what is that motion?
that we're going to increase the cost.
Well,
For-
I'll second that motion to increase our application for disposal system construction permit fee in the category of up to 440 gallons from $450 to $575, effective immediately.
All in favor?
Tom and I.
Joyce, aye?
Alan, aye.
And then we'll just review the others.
Right, so we can get some more information from Steve and from
Well,
Tom.
right,
Yeah.
for those two categories, there's gonna be additional reviews, like Tom said, and inspections to see.
Yeah.
So that will dictate that increase.
And of
So
course-
Tom, if you could hold off on any future invoicing until 2027, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, the other thing we need to do is, we need to we've already let Tom know, but we need to let Steve know. Any additional inspections, we need to know immediately.
Mhm.
And we need to find a way to effectively pass those on,
Mhm.
whether it's the installer or the property owner. Right, they need to be notified ASAP. And if for some reason we get any heads up that may be developing a trend on that particular property, we should let the installer and or property owner know that that's the direction they're heading in.
Mhm.
So maybe if there is an installer or property owner who needs to get their stuff organized, that'll be a warning that, hey, cut your costs, get your stuff in order, present it once, and we'll all be happier.
So what we do is if there is a reinspection or a review, the reinspection doesn't take place until the fee is paid. Until the fee's collected, period.
Okay, well, that's good.
So that ensures that Jack's not going down the rabbit hole chasing for that money.
Right.
I'm fine with that.
And how are you gonna accommodate for Tom in his presence at a meeting on a property for something?
I think that any work that Tom or Steve does for us
Mhm.
that is more of the, I'll call it the consulting category.
Yeah.
So like when we, in the past, have worked on and created dumpster regulations for the first time. Now we're working on well regulations.
Yeah.
Also, maybe to cover problem properties that need visits. We either need to, on the municipal side, forget about the problem properties, we need to have a pocket of money in our budget for consulting.
What's the category now called?
Contracted services,
Contracted service.
and that was used for the tobacco back in the day.
And for the problem properties, we need to have some other means of covering those expenses somehow. It'd be nice if it could be passed on to the property owner, but it may take some discussion to develop that.
Maybe it's a matter of just looking for the next go around with the budget,
Right.
increasing that
Absolutely, we have to,
X amount of dollars more. So, and we can justify why.
right.
Well, and that's fine. If it's a problem property, it would, in my mind, it would be nice if we could recoup some of those expenses, but again, it may be something that we have to provide whether we
Well, I
can
guess as
recoup
long
it or
as,
not.
as long as Jack's in the loop, quote unquote, problem properties, and both Tom and Steve are aware of what the department sees as a standard in each category, then, I'd like to think that once they go beyond that too, let's say in that normal, oh geez, this is the third review, Tom would know, and they reach out to Jack at the Board of Health, let them know, hey, I need to do a third review,
Mhm.
and then that process, however we want to develop that, it's more of an internal administrative thing, but
Well, yeah, it just doesn't get approved until the fee is paid.
there you go,
That's all, it's the same concept.
there you go.
Tom doesn't review it, did you pay the fee? Or Jack can say, let Tom know I paid the fee, and then they can move on, he can move on to the approval process.
There you go.
But it doesn't go anywhere until the fee is paid.
But Tom just gives a heads up to Jack, hey, I'm gonna need to do this. Jack starts the wheels in motion, Tom just sits back and waits. But Jack gets back and says, okay, Tom, you're good to go to review.
Right, because that's your only leverage.
This is true.
Just like the reinspection, that's your only leverage,
Correct, yeah.
and it's effective.
Let's see how it goes. Hopefully it'll go smooth.
Yeah.
Okay,
What
so
do you think, Tom? That sound good to you?
Yeah, do you have a re-review fee already listed?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yep.
yeah,
that makes sense.
125,
All right,
Yeah.
yep, that makes sense. Yep.
and then that would be for Steve, for an inspector is 150.
And just out of curiosity, Tom, from a general pricing perspective, how are you feeling with your pricing structure that you have out there to us?
Yeah, no, I think it's fine. There's some that I do a lot more and some that I do a lot less, so I think it all balances,
I mean, are you forecasting any kind of increases in the near future, out of curiosity?
No,
Okay, not that I'll hold you to that.
yeah.
Okay, just wanted to get an idea, thank you. Yep.
No, it's been a lot, especially with the electronic transfers and stuff, it's been a lot easier. It used to be that I had to drive, collect, the plans, carry the plans around. I have a whole system now, Jack just, sends it over. I have it all scanned in on a file. I got a special notebook file that I have everything in, so it makes it a lot easier.
Awesome. Jack's helping to streamline the process.
All right. In the essence of time,
All right, thank you, Tom.
Thank you,
Tom,
Tom.
thank you very
All
much.
right. Night.
Thanks, Tom.
we will move along and try to wrap this up. All right, so it looks like we're at Lake Nipmuc Task Force update.
All right, so I reached out to Lake Nipmuc Task Force. I did not hear from John Dudley, who was the chair of the task force, but I did hear from Dan Byer. He said we have not met. Honestly, I'm not sure the value of this group anymore. Now that we've increased town staffing, mainly Isabella, who's the Concom agent, there's a lot more progress and less need for another committee. That being said, maybe checking in a few times a year rather than trying to meet monthly. Just a word of thought. So they haven't met with over a year. Dan says it's basically a useless committee at this point. And now that they have Concom agent Isabella full-time.
Okay. So does that mean we need to reach out to her occasionally? I mean,
I talk with her every day.
yeah, so if something comes up, you're in the loop.
Yeah.
Now we defer
Good to go.
to Joyce as she is our representative. What
Yeah.
her take on this is. What do you think, Joyce?
Well, I mean, I would be very happy to interact with Isabella, because we weren't doing anything. I don't know. We just never had another meeting.
Right. Okay.
But I certainly would interact with Isabella.
Okay, so we'll let Isabella know that Joyce is a resource. Perfect. All right,
Thank you, Joyce.
thank you, Joyce. Moving on, health agent updates, please.
Happy to report, thanks to everybody, we have a great team, great people in this area who work very well together. This particular property at Hartford Ave West, the water line has been moved. And the, new line's been connected to the well. It was sanitized hopefully this morning, so then we can check it for potability. The resident is very, very thankful to the board for all the work that they did on her behalf. We're also working with Amy at the senior center, because through it all, to add insult to injury, the stove, our kitchen stove went. Amy has an organization that will donate a stove to the resident, so Amy and I and Jack are working together on that right now.
Cool.
24 Kinsley Lane, we had a concern from a resident regarding effluent on the existing septic system. Jack and I went up, spoke with the daughter of the property owner, left our information. The property owner did come in the next day, but Jack and I were on a tour of Wheelabrator. We did speak with the resident several times, in fact, and he had it pumped almost immediately. And have we gotten those pumps up?
Not yet.
Not yet. So, working with the property owner, we sent him a order for compliance, set down a time frame on it. He's already hired an engineer, the engineer's already contacted the office. We had Steve Donatelli go up there, because we wanted to see what was going on with the system. I wasn't sure, because the plan, well, it was a Title V from when the present owner purchased it from the previous owner back in 2018. It indicated it was a tight tank. It's not a tight tank, it's a 1,000-gallon tank, which is older than Methuselah and doesn't even comply with Title V any longer. So he is moving forward with, he secured engineering services and he has every intention of, preparing it. So right now, he's on a pumping schedule. And
Was it, is that, Colleen, is that for Kinsley Lane?
no,
24.
24.
24, yeah, okay.
Yeah, for Kinsley Lane, we, spoke with that property owner a while ago, and, she was going to send us the Title V. Jack and I, we thought we got it, but apparently we didn't, so Jack went down there yesterday with
Oh, good.
Isabella. Yep, Jack went down there yesterday with Isabella, so that's in the process too.
Okay, good, because I was down there looking at it and I was kind of concerned about it, so.
Yeah, so that's on our radar too, so we'll keep you up to date on that one as well.
Okay,
So
good.
Kinsley Lane, so he's on a pumping schedule right now, it's 30 days or sooner if we feel that he needs to pump it sooner until
Okay.
the system is repaired. Also had a concern from this resident at apartment D1 at Sunrise Apartments. It's something that I addressed previously with the housing authority. I've sent 2 emails so far to no avail. I was advised by the executive director that one of the concerns in the bathroom was going to be addressed last Friday. It was not, unfortunately. Another email was sent to the housing authority on Monday. I haven't heard anything back. So I'm prepared to reach out one more time to the executive director. And if there's no response, then I'm prepared to send a letter to the chairman of the housing authority.
Oh, good, okay, good.
So I'm working through that. I'm hoping, that we'll have some sort of contact.
Right.
And just the food trucks, that's a weekly event. Tomorrow night I'll be up at Vanderwalk Farm, like I usually am on a Friday night and on a Sunday. Been a pretty busy season,
Yeah.
pretty consistent.
And he just opened up, didn't he, his trailer?
Yep, so that's why too, thanks. I went down to Gasco, Abe, the old property owner, I should say, opened up, a trailer, and is serving, barbecue and
Just
light
kebab?
foods, yep, shish
Yeah.
kebab, yep.
I've had a sampling already, it's very good.
Ah.
Beautiful area, he did a fantastic job, I mean, really truly, a nice, seating area, plus also too, been up at the grill at Imperial, was up there Saturday morning, did a re-inspection. There were a couple of minor items that need to be corrected, which were, and they're also moving fast and furious with Miss mendonma. So that should be opening up probably within the next 2 weeks.
Very good.
I know there was a couple
Oh,
of
good.
Yeah,
license transfers that took place at the select board last week, liquor license.
yeah,
So they did a transfer from Men and Diner over to PJ's Pub.
yeah,
And I didn't realize that the Diner held them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I didn't either, but
Apparently they did.
yeah, so, looking, they're a great outfit, to work with. PJ's really, the 2 guys are devoted, dedicated.
That's the place in Bellingham, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, nice guys,
Yeah.
really nice guys.
Very
So, we're busy,
Mhm.
consistent, that's for sure.
anything
Good
else?
job.
Thanks,
All right,
all of us, we're a team, this is what we do.
That's great.
no objections, we'll move on to topics not anticipated within 48 hours.
I have none.
Joyce, anything?
Not me. I'm at the
All right.
Cape.
Mhm.
Good and welfare for the board.
Had a couple updates.
Hit me.
Well, it's related to West Nile virus in Tripoli. We got notification from DPH. There was the first, announced the first animal case of West Nile virus in Massachusetts. It was a goat. It was exposed to West Nile virus in Lunenburg in Worcester County. So Lunenburg, Leominster, Shirley, Pittsburgh, and now been raised to moderate risk. Got a notice on Triple E. There was the season's first Triple E positive mosquito sample. Detected in mosquitoes in Massachusetts for the first time. This was in, let's see, confirmed in a sample July 21st in the town of Belchertown,
Yep,
Hampton County, if I'm not mistaken.
no,
Yeah, so we're pretty good here, so overall,
not going.
knock wood, we're doing well overall from a season perspective, so. But, good thing.
Anybody else?
Thing I wanted to ask
Oh,
was,
hit us.
just on the raw milk survey.
Yeah.
Joyce, would you want to update the board on our raw milk survey field trip?
Oh, well, we went along looking at for the different milk and products, and we had a nice thing on up off of, what was the farm?
Cedar Hill?
Yes, we had a
Up
nice
on Crystal
discussion
Road.
with them.
Yep.
And then we went over to see Peter Hawks, and he's got a lovely little store there
Yeah.
doing his stuff. So yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah. So basically, we found at Cedar Hill, all they do is meat, which is a category that's on that survey, even though the survey was titled raw milk. They were asking about other products. Green Acre Farms, Peter Hawks Farm, because they do raw milk products, and they also do other things as well. They do eggs and they do meat as well. So essentially, those are the only two that we're aware of and what we could communicate with Cedar Hill and Peter, the only two entities in town that do this kind of stuff. There was one other farm up the road on Quistit that we went to, Joyce, that,
Yeah, that's right.
right, but they just deal in alpaca products.
Right.
And what, maple syrup?
Maple syrup, yeah, and honey.
Honey, so
Okay.
they didn't.
Yeah.
Well, so what I'll do is I'll submit the survey on behalf of the board.
Thank you.
The information,
Good job.
be done with it,
To both of you, good job.
you know. It was a lovely day for a field trip, wasn't it, Joyce?
Yeah, we had a good
We got
time.
to Got to sit out on the porch of the Cedar Hill Farm. The Venusians were very accommodating and got to play with their dog and their little girl there.
Yeah,
And there was a cow that was moving like crazy. We never did find out why, right?
I know. It was like she was crying and saying, help me if you can.
Mark went to address that, but we're not sure what happened. And the only other thing I would just mention, let's see, just to note that Jack has formally entered his role as Inspectional Services Coordinator. It happened started July 1st. So I think you've been in communication with Jeremy on that, right? So there'll be formal processes that I guess are communications that have been going on regarding that. I know it's been on his title since he was hired, but his focus has always been Board of Health.
Correct.
And now that he's had that, he's pretty much got that under his belt. And so he's going to be focusing a little bit more time with that inspectional services coordination element, kind of overseeing the other departments, which he's kind of been doing.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So now it's in play, so.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Smile. Last thing. Should we consider some point the hazardous waste day event that's coming up in, I think, September,
October 11th.
October? Should we start to consider advertising that in the near future?
It's on the Board of Health website.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. But I've done a blast on the Facebook thing.
Cool.
That was October 11th.
October 11th.
We're gonna have a bunch of paper, namely a lot of my old Board of Health packets to trade.
And so it's on the Board of Health webpage. I blasted out to people that are subscribed to our
Yeah.
Board of Health things.
Awesome, thank you.
Very good.
There's also a list of what's acceptable and what's not.
Yeah,
All right.
So that is October 11th at the Highway Department.
beautiful.
All right, so moving along. Next meeting?
August 13th.
It's not a Friday, so it's good.
7 o'clock? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll
I
make a
move we
motion.
adjourn.
I beat you to it. You get the second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, good night, Joyce.
Good night, Joyce.
Night,
Thank you.
have a
Enjoy
nice
the rest of your
vacation.
day.
Thank you. See you later.
All righty.
That's cool. Thank you, thank you. By quite a bit, probably.